The storm outside had been building for hours, but inside the grand mansion, everything felt strangely still. It was the kind of silence that warns you something terrible is coming. At exactly 7:14 p.m., a panic cry echoed down the marble hallway, sharp enough to snap every servant out of their routine. In the center of the chaos stood Mr. Archer, the millionaire known for his calm, calculated nature. But tonight, none of that control showed on his face. His hands were shaking. His voice kept cracking. And the words he whispered were enough to send a chill through anyone who heard them. His son had only 1 hour left. Liam Archer, the boy everyone believed had everything, wealth, privilege, a future paved with opportunity, now lay pale and barely conscious on the living room floor. No one knew exactly what happened. One moment he was laughing with friends, and the next his breathing turned shallow, his body cold, and his pulse almost gone. The doctor living 20 minutes away was stuck behind a fallen tree. The ambulance caught in traffic. Every possible help was suddenly unreachable, as if the universe had turned against them all at once. The staff scrambled. One servant ran for blankets. Another tried calling emergency services again. Mr. Archer tried lifting his son, but Liam's body felt limp, fragile, as though even a small movement could make things worse. Everyone felt helpless. Everyone except one person the millionaire rarely noticed, except when giving instructions or corrections. Maria, the maid. She had arrived only 3 months ago, a quiet woman who kept to herself and did her work without drawing attention. Most people barely remembered her name. But as the situation grew worse, as Liam's breathing faded into shallow gasps, Maria stepped forward, not with hesitation, but with a calmness that surprised everyone. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice didn't tremble. "Sir," she said firmly, "please give me a moment with him." Mr. Archer stared at her, confused and desperate. This was his only child, his entire world. And now a maid, a woman he barely spoke to, was asking him to trust her when even trained professionals couldn't reach them. But something in her eyes stopped him from refusing. There was a certainty there, a strange confidence that didn't match anything happening around them. Maria knelt beside Liam, placing her hand gently over his chest, closed her eyes as if listening to something only she could hear. The room watched her in stunned silence. Even the storm seemed to quiet down for a moment. No one knew what she planned to do. No one understood how she could possibly help when time was slipping away by the second. But Maria whispered something, soft, emotional, and then reached for a small, old cloth pouch she always carried but never opened. The moment she untied it, Mr. Archer's eyes widened. He recognized something inside it, something he never expected a maid to have. And just as Liam's pulse nearly disappeared completely, Maria did the unthinkable, something no one in that room could have imagined. What happened next would change the Archer family forever. But at that moment, standing in that dimly lit room, no one knew whether Maria's impossible act would save the boy or make everything worse. Maria didn't speak for several seconds after opening the small cloth pouch, and that silence made the moment feel even heavier. Inside it was something simple, almost ordinary at first glance, an old silver pendant shaped like a teardrop. But the way Mr. Archer reacted, the sudden way he stepped closer with wide, stunned eyes, proved it meant more than anyone in that room understood. He hadn't seen that pendant in years. He never expected to see it again, especially not held by the maid he barely noticed. Maria kept her focus on Liam. Her hands were steady, her expression calm, but a quiet sadness filled her eyes. It was as if she'd been waiting for this moment or fearing it. She placed the pendant gently on Liam's chest, right above his heart, and whispered something that sounded like a prayer or a memory. The room stood perfectly still. A soft glow from the storm-lit window cast shadows over her face, making the moment feel both fragile and strangely powerful. Mr. Archer finally found his voice, though it came out rough. "Where did you get that?" he asked, but she didn't look at him. Not yet. Instead, she pressed her palm lightly over the pendant, watching Liam's face as though waiting for the smallest sign of change. His breathing stayed uneven, his pulse still faint. But Maria didn't move. She didn't panic. Her calmness felt out of place, almost unsettling when everyone else was drowning in fear. The other servants exchanged confused glances. Most of them didn't even know what the pendant was, but they could feel the tension in the air shift. Something about this moment didn't make sense, and they knew Maria wasn't just another maid. There was something about her, the way she carried herself, the quiet confidence she showed only now, that hinted at a story no one had heard before. Finally, Maria spoke, her voice soft. "I didn't steal it," she said, sensing the unspoken question. "I've had it for a long time. Longer than you believe." Mr. Archer's jaw tightened. He wasn't angry. He was confused. Deeply confused. That pen belonged to someone he once trusted more than anyone. Someone he lost years ago. Someone connected to a chapter of his life he never talked about, not even to his son. The pendant shouldn't be here, and certainly not with Maria. "Why do you have it?" he asked again, but Maria only lowered her head, keeping her palm on Liam's chest. "This isn't the time for that," she murmured. "But you need to know, the boy is stronger than he looks. He always has been." Her words didn't make sense. Not yet. But the certainty in her voice made the hairs on Mr. Archer's arms lift. How could she know anything about his son's strength? About his life? About anything beyond her daily tasks? The storm outside grew louder, a rumble of thunder shaking the windows. Liam's breathing hitched, and Maria leaned closer, whispering something no one could quite hear. It wasn't English, but it wasn't unfamiliar either. The rhythm of it felt old, connected to a story that had started long before tonight. Mr. Archer took a step forward, torn between desperation and a growing sense of dread. "Maria, what are you doing to him?" She didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, she looked up for the first time, meeting his eyes with a calmness that didn't match the chaos around them. "There's something you should have told him," she said quietly. "Something you should have told both of us." Those words hit him harder than any storm. Both of us? What did she mean? Before he could ask, Liam's body trembled, his fingers twitching as if reacting to something unseen. Gasps filled the room. The pendant glimmered faintly under Maria's hand. Whatever was happening wasn't ordinary. It wasn't explainable. And it wasn't over. Liam's fingers twitched again, this time more clearly, and Maria's breath caught for the first time since she stepped forward. She kept her palm steady, but a quiet strain flickered across her face. The servants leaned in, unsure whether to hope or fear what they were seeing. Mr. Archer took a single step closer, tore between wanting to pull his son into his arms and wanting to let Maria finish whatever she was doing. Every second felt too long, every small movement too delicate, as though the room itself was holding its breath. Outside, the storm pushed harder against the windows, and a sudden flash of lightning illuminated the room. In that split-second glow, Mr. Archer noticed something he hadn't seen before. Maria's other hand trembled, just slightly, enough to show that even she wasn't fully in control of whatever was happening. He realized then that while she seemed calm, she wasn't unaffected. She was holding herself together with effort, driven by something stronger than fear. Liam's breathing shifted again, but it didn't steady. If anything, it grew more unpredictable. Deep gasps mixed with shallow breaths, like his body was struggling between two forces pulling in opposite directions. Maria's eyes tightened with worry, and for the first time, Mr. Archer saw uncertainty in her expression. "What is happening to him?" he demanded quietly, almost afraid to raise his voice. Maria shook her head slightly. "It's not supposed to be this fast." The words didn't explain anything, but they made the tension in the room stretch even tighter. Not supposed to be this fast? What did she know about what was happening? And how long had she known it? Before Mr. Archer could ask again, the door burst open, and another house staff member rushed in, soaked from the storm. "Sir, the main road is blocked. The ambulance can't make it. They said it might be another hour." An hour. The very limit the doctor had warned them about. The limit everyone feared. The limit Liam didn't seem to have. Mr. Archer felt his chest tighten painfully. He had built empires, solved problems others called impossible, and made decisions that shaped entire industries. Yet he couldn't do anything for the only person who truly mattered. He looked at Maria again, trying to understand why she seemed like their only hope, despite being a stranger in so many ways. Maria finally lifted her hand from the pendant. only for Liam's body to jolt in response. She flinched, startled by the sudden movement. A soft, pained sound escaped Liam's lips, a sound that made Mr. Archer freeze. His son hadn't spoken or reacted in nearly 20 minutes. "Maria," he whispered, fear and confusion twisting his voice. But she didn't respond. She was staring at Liam with an expression he couldn't read. Fear, guilt, recognition, and something deeper. Something personal. It became painfully clear that this wasn't the first time she had seen something like this. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't luck. Maria was connected to Boy in a way she hadn't revealed. Liam's chest rose sharply, his face tightening as if in a dream or a memory he couldn't escape. Maria leaned closer, whispering his name with a tenderness that startled even her. The connection between them felt undeniable, unsettling. Another flash of lightning filled the room, and for a moment, the pendant glimmered with the same pale light. "You should have told him," Maria whispered again, but this time her voice broke. Mr. Archer swallowed hard. "Told him what?" "Maria, what do you know about my son?" She finally looked at him, and this time there was no calmness left. Only a truth she'd been carrying alone for far too long. "Everything," she said softly. "More than you ever wanted anyone to know." And before Mr. Archer could breathe, Liam's body arched in another sudden tremor. Stronger, sharper, pulling every eye back to him as the storm howled louder, as if responding to something none of them understood. Liam's body lifted slightly off the floor with the next tremor, as if something inside him was fighting its way to the surface. Maria's breath hitched, and she reached for him instinctively, but stopped inches before touching his skin. Her hesitation sent another wave of panic to Mr. Archer, who took a step forward as if ready to grab his son. Yet even he felt there was something dangerous about interrupting whatever was happening. The lights flickered. A low hum, faint, almost like a vibration, filled the room for a moment before fading again. No one spoke. No one dared to. It felt like even the wrong breath could break the fragile barrier holding Liam between life and whatever was pulling at him. Maria slowly lowered her hand toward the pendant again, but before she could touch it, Liam's eyes shot open. They weren't fully awake. They weren't focused, but they were open, glassy, unfocused, and filled with something heavy. Something that made Mr. Archer's stomach twist. Liam wasn't seeing the room. He wasn't seeing them. His eyes locked onto something far beyond the moment. "Liam," Maria whispered urgently, her voice suddenly trembling. "Stay with us." But he didn't seem to hear her. His lips parted, struggling to form words. The sound that came out was broken, almost like he was speaking in his sleep. But then a clearer word slipped through, a word that made Maria's hand freeze midair. "Her." Maria's face drained of color. Mr. Archer looked between them, his heart pounding harder with every second. "Who is he talking about?" he demanded, but Maria didn't answer. She couldn't. She was staring at the boy as if he had just opened a door she'd spent years trying to keep closed. Liam's eyes flooded again, and he gasped a breath that sounded more like a choke. His back arched once more, sharper this time, pulling a frightened cry from one of the servants. The pendant on his chest glowed faintly again, just for a heartbeat, but enough for everyone to see it. Mr. Archer stumbled back a step, his face going pale. He knew that glow. He'd seen it once years ago, in a moment he tried to forget, a moment tied to the very person the pendant belonged to, a moment that had changed everything. Maria leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Liam, listen to me. You don't have to follow it. Stay here. Stay with your father." But Liam's head tilted slightly, as if listening to something no one else could hear. He whispered again, this time more clearly. "She's calling me." Maria closed her eyes, the pain in her expression unmistakable. "Not now," she whispered under her breath. "Please, not now." Mr. Archer felt something inside him fracture. "Maria," he said, voice cracking, "what has happened to my son? What does this have to do with you? With that pendant? With her?" Maria finally looked up at him, her eyes full of fear she could no longer hide. "You kept the truth from him," she said quietly. "From both of us. And now it's forcing its way back." The storm slammed against the windows again, as if responding to her words. Liam's breathing grew frantic, each inhale sharper than the last. The hum in the room returned, louder this time, vibrating through the air like a warning. Maria placed both hands on the floor beside him, steadying herself. "If this continues," she whispered, "he's going to cross a point he can't come back from." Mr. Archer's heart lurched. "Then stop it. Do whatever you were doing before. Just stop this." "I can't do it alone," she said, her voice breaking for first time. "Not this time." "Then what do you need?" he demanded. Maria hesitated, tears forming in her eyes. "I need you," she whispered. "I need you to finally face what you've been running from." Another tremor shook Liam's body, stronger, violent, forcing Maria and Mr. Archer both to reach for him at the same time. And just as their hands touched him, the pendant flared with a sudden burst of light, bright enough to wash the room in white. Then everything fell into a haunting, breathless silence, right before the moment everything would break. For a moment, the blinding light swallowed everything. The room, the storm, even the sound of Liam's ragged breathing. Mr. Archer felt his hand gripping his son's shoulder, yet he couldn't see anything, only the cold burr of the light against his eyelids. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the light vanished. The room snapped back into view, dim and trembling from the storm outside. But something was wrong, terribly, impossibly wrong. Liam was no longer lying flat on the floor. He was sitting upright. His eyes were still open, still unfocused, still seeing something none of them could. But he wasn't gasping anymore. His breathing was slow, almost too slow, and the glow from the pendant lingered faintly on his skin. Mr. Archer felt relief surge through him, but Maria grabbed his arm before he could reach for his son. "Don't," she whispered sharply. "Not yet." Mr. Archer froze. The fear in her voice was different now. Not panic, not confusion, but certainty. A certainty that chilled him. Liam slowly turned his head, as if following something moving across the room, except nothing was there. Maria's eyes tracked the same invisible path, and her lips parted slightly, as if she sensed something too. "Maria," Mr. Archer whispered, "what do you see?" She shook her head, without looking at him. "Not what? Who?" Before she could say more, Liam lifted a hand, pointing toward the far corner of the room. His voice came out barely audible, soft but eerily steady. "She's here." A cold rush swept over the servants, several of them instinctively stepping back. Mr. Archer felt his heart stop. For a second, he knew who Liam meant. He knew it before Maria even spoke. But hearing Liam say it out loud made something inside him collapse. Maria swallowed hard. "Liam, you can't talk to her." "Not now." But Liam kept staring at the empty corner, his expression shifting, as if he recognized someone he longed to see. Mr. Archer's voice cracked. "Maria, it's not possible. She's gone. She's been gone for years." Maria turned to him slowly, her eyes shining with a truth she had never allowed herself to say. "She's not gone. Not the way you think." His throat tightened. "Don't say that. Don't bring her into this." But Maria stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You were so desperate to protect him that you ignored everything she warned you about, everything she left behind." Her words struck him like a blow. He felt a deep ache he hadn't let himself feel in years. A grief he'd buried, a guilt he thought time had softened. Now it returned like a storm inside him. Liam suddenly flinched, clutching his chest where the pendant rested. The faint glow brightened for a moment, then dimmed again like a dying pulse. Maria knelt beside him, her hand hovering but not touching. "She's trying to reach him," Maria whispered. "But he's not ready. He doesn't understand what she's asking." Mr. Archer shook his head. "Asking what?" Maria hesitated, asking him to choose. The room fell deathly silent. Even the storm seemed to pause. Mr. Archer's voice was barely a breath. "Choose what?" Maria lifted her eyes to him, filled with anguish. Whether he wanted to stay here or go with her. The words hit him harder than anything in his life. He lunged forward on instinct, but before he could touch Liam, another jolt ran through the boy's body, a violent, sharp tremor that made the pendant flare again. Maria's face drained of color. No, this is too soon." Liam's voice came out strained, trembling. She says time's almost over. Maria grabbed his shoulders, her own voice breaking. Don't listen. Liam, stay here. Fight it. Mr. Archer dropped to his knees beside them, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Liam, look at me. Look at your father. But Liam didn't. He kept staring into the air, eyes widening, breathing, quickening again. And then, as the storm rumbled one more time, he whispered a final, chilling sentence. She says, I've already crossed. Maria's gasp filled the room, shocked, terrified, and completely unprepared for what those words meant. Because whatever was about to happen next, none of them were ready for it. The moment Liam whispered those words, the atmosphere in the room shifted, so sharply it felt like the air itself was pulling away from them. Maria tightened her grip on Liam's shoulders, her voice trembling with urgency. Liam, listen to me. You are not gone. You are still here. You can still choose. But Liam's gaze didn't move. He stared into the empty space, as though someone stood right in front of him, someone only he could see. Mr. Archer's heart hammered painfully in his chest. He leaned closer, fighting the shaking in his hands. Son, please, don't leave. Not like this. For the first time, Liam's eyes flickered, and then, slowly, he turned toward his father. It was only an inch, but it was the first sign that he was still fighting for this world. Mr. Archer let out a broken breath, hope rising fast and fragile. Maria reached the pendant, placing her palm gently over it. Liam! She's calling because she cares. But caring doesn't mean taking you away. You have a life here, a future. She doesn't want you to cross, not yet. A soft gust of wind moved through the room, though no window was open. Liam blinked rapidly, struggling between two worlds, two choices, two voices. His breathing grew uneven again, but this time there was a strength behind it, like something inside him was pushing back. Dad! Liam whispered, barely audible. Mr. Archer folded over him, tears burning in his eyes. I'm right here. I'm not letting you go. Not again. Another tremor shook Liam's body, but this one felt different. Less like a pull and more like a release. The faint glow from the pendant flickered, then began to fade. Maria inhaled shakily. He's choosing to stay. Liam's chest rose deeply, and for the first time in what felt like hours, he let out a steady breath. The invisible pressure in the room lifted, the humming disappeared, and the storm outside softened. It felt as though something had stepped back, allowing him to return fully. Liam blinked again, clearer this time. His eyes focused, really focused, on his father and on Maria. I'm here, he whispered. Mr. Archer pulled him into a trembling embrace, relief crashing over him like a wave. The nightmare was breaking apart. He could feel it. Maria wiped her eyes quietly, watching the moment with a soft, relieved smile. But just as the room began to settle, Liam's hand twitched. He reached for the pendant and held it between his fingers, staring at it with a strange expression. Something knowing, something almost to wear. Dad, he murmured. Mr. Archer looked at him quickly. Yes, son? Anything. Tell me. Liam swallowed, his voice steadier than expected. She said something before she left. Maria froze. Mr. Archer leaned in. What did she say? Liam lifted his eyes, and the room seemed to still again as he whispered. She said this wasn't the last time. And she said Maria isn't here by accident. Both adults froze. Maria's breath caught. Mr. Archer stared at Liam, confusion and fear mixing again. Before either of them could speak, Liam added softly, She said Maria knows the truth about why I was never supposed to wear this pendant. Maria's face went pale. Mr. Archer turned to her sharply. What truth? Maria opened her mouth, but whatever explanation she had been hiding was nothing like the one they expected, because it wasn't about the past. It was about what was still coming. Maria stood still for a long moment, as if the weight of Liam's words had finally cornered her. The storm had weakened outside, leaving only the soft rumble of distant thunder. Liam was steady now, breathing evenly, yet the pendant glimmered faintly in his hand like a reminder that the story wasn't quite finished. Mr. Archer waited, his expression a mix of fear, confusion, and something softer, hope maybe, or the beginnings of understanding. Maria finally exhaled, wiping her palms against her skirt. You deserve the truth. Both of you. Her voice was gentle, but there was a firmness in it, as if she had been waiting years for this moment. The pendant wasn't meant to be worn by a child. It was made for someone who carried a different kind of burden. She glanced at Mr. Archer. For Liam's mother. Mr. Archer nodded slowly. I always knew it was important to her. I just never knew why. She asked me to safeguard it, Maria continued. Not because it had power, but because it carried a connection. A strong one. She was afraid that if Liam ever tried to reach for her, he might succeed before he was ready. She looked at the boy, her expression softening. And today he almost did. Liam lowered his gaze to the pendant, turning it over in his hand. She said you knew something else, something important. Maria hesitated, then met Mr. Archer's eyes. She didn't want you to raise Liam alone. She asked me to stay long before she passed, not as a servant, but as someone who could guide him if anything like this ever happened. Her voice grew quieter. She trusted me with her son. Liam's brows lifted slightly. So, you're here because of her? Maria nodded. Because she loved you, both of you, and she wanted you to have someone who understood this connection between worlds, someone who wouldn't be afraid if it ever reached for you again. Mr. Archer's shoulders sagged, a mix of grief and gratitude washing over him. All these years you carried that for us? I carried it because I promised her, Maria said softly, and because I care. A long silence settled over the room, softer, calmer than before. Liam leaned gently against his father, exhausted but present. Mr. Archer wrapped an arm around him, holding him close as if grounding them both. So, is it over? Liam asked quietly. Maria smiled faintly. For now, yes. She only reached out because she thought you were slipping away. She was trying to bring comfort, not take you. Liam nodded, relief settling into his features. I felt that, like she wasn't trying to scare me. She never would, Maria replied. She just needed you to know she's still watching, still guiding. But your life, your path, it's here, with your father. Mr. Archer tightened his embrace, his voice thick. I'm so proud of you, Liam. And I'm here. I always will be. Slowly, the tension in the room melted. The storm outside cleared, leaving only the soft glow of dawn beginning to touch the sky. Liam looked up, noticing the warm light spilling through the window. It feels different now, he murmured. Maria smiled. Because you're back. Fully. Mr. Archer rose to his feet, lifting Liam with him. He turned to Maria, a sincerity in his eyes she hadn't seen from him before. Thank you for everything, for saving him, for staying. Maria looked down, touched. I was only keeping a promise. Then let's make a new one, Mr. Archer said. This house, this family, it isn't complete without you. Her eyes softened, surprised but grateful. Liam reached out with a tired smile. Stay with us, Maria. Mom trusted you. And I think I do too. Maria nodded, her voice warm. Then I'll stay. As the morning light filled the room, the pendant rested quietly on Liam's palm. No longer glowing, just still and peaceful, like the connection had finally eased. And though the family knew the past had brushed close enough to change their lives forever, they also understood something far more important. They were no longer running from the truth. They were ready to grow with it.